Okay, continuing with the King Kuda, I've chosen some wheels from a Matchbox car. They're pretty cool, really wide in the back. I'm going to make a stance about like this. How I'll accomplish that is using the car base on the bottom side. I will cut down to the differential axle casting thing so I can mark my center line with this saw. I'll do that on the front and the back. This is not for the axle to fit in, just a guide for filing it wide enough for the axle. This way the car will ride perfectly straight if all goes as planned. So I'll file these out, and I will shave off and file off all the casting of the differential and axle and the front suspension so that I can glue small square rod pieces between there to help the axle stay in place and be very robust so the car can be played with no fear of falling apart. The engine that came with the car is being replaced with the motor we built in the last video. The easiest way to get rid of it was to grind it off with a Dremel tool and a grinding wheel, as you're seeing here. Made it nice and flat so the motor would mount easily and be just high enough to look right. And that's a little dry mock-up of how the motor will fit. I removed the paint and I primed the bottom and the interior in black, as well as the inside of the body casting, so that when you look inside the car you'll see black and not silver. The car itself is going to be silver, but not bare metal. I'm painting it silver, and then the car will be weathered to look like it's been well taken care of, but in the desert for years. Here it is in its fresh silver look, a quick dry mock-up. I'm going to make some side exhaust pipes from this styrene rod. They're going to come out the side here and turn out at the back wheel. I cut two pieces that are too long so that I can cut off the excess when I'm done. To bend them, I'm going to use this heat gun. I'll warm them up, grab them with needle nose pliers, and make a 90-degree bend. Then I'll check the length against the car several times to make sure it's the right place. I'll actually grab it with the pliers so that I can know I'm in exactly the right place when I heat it up. Doesn't take much heat at all. Bend it 90 degrees in the opposite direction. Now I'm going to make a copy of this exact thing with that other piece I bent with it. There they are. I'll cut them off. This is where they're going to turn. The openings will be. Eyeball that it's the same as the other one. And now I'll take a small awl, which is a pointy metal tool for marking things, and I'll push it in the end of the pipe to stretch it and thin the edges so that it looks more realistic and less bulky. I push it in and twist it around a lot, obviously holding tight is to not break it. I'm going to paint the inside of the pipes black. Even though I will prime them in black, I want to make sure that it is black as far in there as possible so nobody ever sees any white down in those pipes. I chromed them, which was pointless. I should have just painted them silver, as after I weather them, there's no real evidence they were ever chrome. They just look like dirty silver, as you will see when they're installed in the car and it's weathered. I made a small strip, and this is what's going to hold the wheels in if you've been wondering about that. It's going to fit down in this groove and be long enough to keep the wheels spaced apart in the back because they're so wide. And I want them to stay out and not move in and out. I'll glue it in. I'll do the same thing to the front. All that white styrene will get painted with a paint pen to hide the white. Here's the pipes being installed. I needed to trim off the underside end where I made the initial 90-degree bend to get it to fit properly. But the fit came out about how I planned in the beginning, just not quite executed the way I had planned. You want to make sure your pipes don't touch your wheels so they turn well. I'm going to weather this with pigments in alcohol. The product I'm using is a model railroading weathering product that I have left over from something from a long time ago. And when it dries out, you just add more alcohol and away you go. You want to be careful not to use a product like this over acrylic paints, as it will dissolve the paint and strip it away basically. You can have some cool techniques using that, but if you have a nice paint job you're trying to preserve, I recommend you only weather over enamel or clear coated acrylics. I weather the interior and the bottom, everything. I put 2 coats of this on, and then I'll put on another coat of a black, what's called instant age, but it's more like a wash. You'll see here, but it's a pretty thick wash. And you can thin this out by adding more alcohol. And one of the other good things about this is if it dries and you're not happy, you can take a brush with just alcohol on it and you can move the stuff around, or if you get really ambitious, you can pretty much remove it. What I usually do is take a paper towel with some alcohol and kind of model it around once it's dry to make it more consistent. I did not show that process, I believe. Here's all the parts after the weathering. I added a little driver from a World War II 1/72nd scale little kit. I'll fit these parts together without the windows and the engine, and I will spray some airbrush on some dust. I couldn't find the stand to put the car in, so I held it in my hand, and it was nearly impossible to film, so you're not really going to get to see this part. Sorry about that. Here was my helper for most of the project. He's my helper for most of these projects. He's usually sitting on that stool right next to me, grabbing me, which he was doing during the airbrushing, making it even more difficult. His name is Mush. He'll be 2 in a couple days. So here's the car put together after airbrushing on the dust. Looking pretty good, pretty happy with that. I put some plug wires on the motor with some string. It's pretty thin. I super glued the ends, stuck them in the holes on the heads or the valve covers. Wound them around back. Here's the fitment of the engine. And there she sits. Thanks a lot for watching. Here it is on the parking lot / car show diorama my son and I built for showing off cars, kind of like I'm doing here. So like I said, this is not supposed to be a dirty build. It's a well-used car that's very well maintained. But in a dusty environment. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you would. And check out some of my other videos if you've got the time. Take care.